morning. My name is Jennifer Spath, and I will be serving as your hearing officer today. Before we get started, I would like to ask everyone to please silence your cell phones. Take a moment. Silence is golden. Also, I am an attorney at the law firm of Gray Robinson here in town, so if either or any of you have any conflict of interest or a case with my firm, please let me know at this time.
You can't hear?
Can't hear? All right, let's move. I am an attorney at the law firm of Gray Robinson. Do either of you or any of you have any cases with or against my firm? Yes, sir.
I'm just going to mention your firm my legal services for the settlement of my late father's estate.
Okay.
Which is the property in question today.
Very good. Thank you for letting me know. We will more likely than not ask you to, I guess, wait until the official Code Enforcement Board hearing, because I do think that might be a conflict of interest. Madam Clerk, can you tell me what that next hearing date would be?
We can continue, you're going to continue it to
We're going to have to continue it to January because the December, right?
January 26th, Code Board.
January the 26th.
No.
You'll receive another notice in the mail.
Well, first of all, there's an issue. I appreciate your time. Y'all have been
He's gonna speak.
notifying me wrong address for a year.
Okay, is it about the Gray Robinson issue?
No.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just wait and we'll call you up at a hearing.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, very good. So there are two ways that we can handle your code enforcement violation cases today. There is summary disposition, which is for those of you who are not disputing whether or not there has been a violation. You just need more time to comply with the violation. It's a quick way to get through the case, the docket, and get you in and out and on with the rest of your day. So if that's something that you would like to do, we were going to form a line up here in front of me. We will hear the code enforcement officer's recommendation for how much time you need to correct the violation, and then we will send you on your way. If, on the other hand, you are contesting the violation, you can wait until after summary disposition, and you will obviously have an opportunity to be heard. And then I will make a judgment and a ruling based on all the testimony that's been presented. So, at this time, I would ask for everyone to please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
Yes, please rise. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Madam Clerk, would you prefer that I go in order? So, in other words, Maybelle McLean would be the first one up?
Or you continue that case.
Okay.
Are they here?
No, that's when we're going to continue March 23rd.
So for the record, this is LCE 1907111. It's 843 East Parker Street. Maybelle McLean is the owner, and hearing officer, we are continuing until
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer of the City of Lakeland. We're going to continue this case to the March 23rd, 2021 Code Board.
Very good. Thank you. And next I have Terry Baldwin. Case number is LCE 1907343, 413 Plum Street.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer of the City of Lakeland. We took summary on this one for 60 days.
Very good. Continue for 60 days, which will be January 5th, 2021.
We have, never mind.
Save the rest of the summary till after everybody else leaves.
The next case I have up is also Terry Baldwin, which is case number LCE 20-00129, which is also 413 Plum Street.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer, City of Lakeland. We're going to continue this one to January 26, 2021.
Very good. Continued for, let's see, until January 26th, 2021. Next, I have case number LCE 20-01026. It's 401 East Palm Drive. Owners are Robert Barfield, or the Trust of Robert Barfield.
Well, the packet of information, if I can distribute it to you and the clerk,
What page is that?
it's just photographs and that sort of thing.
Let's just let the officer present the case first, sir,
Oh,
and then
apologies.
we'll go to there.
What's the page on this one, please?
I'm sorry, it is page 22.
Thank you.
And Mr. Barfield, if you would hold one moment, please.
That's what I think so too. We can just get a different hearing officer or
Is that the next
just put it to the board. I don't know, we'll have to ask the clerk.
Madam Clerk.
Just to clarify, I mean, because her firm is representing you or in some capacity your family related to the property, it's going to be a conflict of interest for her to then also preside over this hearing. So my recommendation is that we just, I mean, you can put whatever you want into the record, don't want to deny you that right, but she can't preside over this case as a hearing officer. We'll have to get either a different hearing officer or just put this case to the board. So we'll need to get dates from the clerk and try to figure that out. But
May I respond specifically, please?
to that particular
Yes, to
point,
that.
sure, yeah.
Sandy Sheets was the attorney to settle the estate for the Robert L. Barfield Trust.
Well, and Mr. Barfield, just for the record, this is being televised and it's on the record, so we don't want,
Understood.
it's for your own protection.
Understood.
We don't want to jeopardize any attorney-client privilege or
Not at
relationship
all. I've
that you
appeared
have.
before many commissions before.
And if I could just also say before that regardless of who the attorney is or what information that the attorney that actually handled that versus what information she might not know anything about any of that because it was handled by another attorney in the firm.
Understood.
But conflicts for a firm, they spread to all attorneys within the firm. So if one attorney within the firm is conflicted, that applies to all attorneys in the firm. So
Okay.
I don't know if that had anything to do with what you were going to say. But
Well, all I was going to say is that Ms. Sheets handled the settling of our estate. Nothing specific to code violations, mind you, but for settling the estate of my late father.
And Mr. Barfield, I want you to be able to you have a right to be heard and it to be fair. And unfortunately, I can't do that because of my position.
Okay.
So just, if you will, Madam Clerk, give us the next date that he can show up. And I
Well-
apologize that this
Yeah,
was
I traveled 2 hours to get here. Got
I'm
up at 5
sorry.
o'clock this morning.
Okay, the next code board is gonna be on January 26th.
Okay.
Okay.
If I can mention one other challenge here, there's an administrative issue. According to the record, the city of Lakeland has tried to serve notice to me 50 times. The address in the property appraiser's record clearly shows the official address of the trust who owns this. It would be nice to get an official notice to the proper address, and I'm frankly kind of astonished that after maybe the first dozen attempts, that somebody would wonder, hey, what's the real address? 50 attempts.
Understood. Thank you, sir. And I have made a note of that, and for the record, we will continue the case until January 26, 2021.
Is this your address?
That's the legal address of the property.
Okay, but your address is this?
That is the, yes, that is
Okay.
me, and I am the property owner.
Okay, that's all I need.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's the,
It's, 126. And you'll get notice.
thank you.
Next case I have is LCE 20-01036. It's on page 23. Its owner is Jewel King.
Truck, okay. The truck is, only got a flat tire.
Hold on, sir. Let the officer present the case first, and then you can rebut it.
All right, Stephen Willis, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This case number is LCE 20-01036. Address is 1129 North Stella Avenue. Owner is Joel King. Violation is derelict vehicle. Date of the violation was February 6, 2020. It was to be corrected by February 6, 2020. There was no reinspection date, as this is a repeat violation in reference to case LCE 18-05596. Photos were taken on October 30th, 2020, which shows the violation still exists. Therefore, city recommends impose $50 per day fine effective February 6, 2020, and run until compliant.
And Mr. King,
Okay, one, I can't do nothing to that tire. I can't even get it off.
I'm sorry, are we doing summary disposition? Are you agreeing to this recommendation? Or are
I'm
we
telling
going-
you, I can't do nothing to the tire. I can't take, the tire, it's got some type of key lock on it, which is my nephew's truck.
So if you're not going to agree to the recommendation, then this is summary disposition. We're trying to clear out the cases that aren't going to be contested. So if you,
I don't understand what you're talking about.
it's okay. If you want to have a hearing, that's fine. But we're going to clear the rest of the people behind you out first,
Okay.
so they can go ahead and get on. I understand. Again, you have an opportunity to be heard. But if you are not in agreement with the recommendation, then I'll call your case.
No, ma'am.
But
We're in the hearing phase right now. Summary dispositions are over.
Okay. Thank you.
And so no one else can take summary, and this is a repeat violation also, so there's no summaries allowed for repeat violations.
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is, it has some type of key lock on it. I can't take the tire off and fix it because the place that fixed this transmission at the time lost the key lock. Key, or whatever you want to call it, that little key that goes onto it to break it off, and so he can replace the tire and everything. They lost it. And I don't know how to get one or what to do with it. So I put a gate around it. I'm going to close it in because, one, the truck can't be driven. He has no license. Two, he's under house arrest until next year, or the middle of next year. So the truck is just going to sit there.
Mr. Willis, could you repeat your recommendation, please?
Yes, ma'am. The city recommends impose a $50 per day fine effective February 6, 2020, and run until compliant.
Okay.
Because it's a repeat violation.
Yes, sir, for a repeat violation.
I do find that this is a repeat violation, and I will accept the officer's recommendation of a $50 fine per day, as this is again, repeated violation, and there's no excuse why that cannot be fixed between now and then. I do have one additional case, and I am also showing Mr. Willis. Are you also the officer on that case? It's for LCE 20-01039, also at 1129 North Stella Avenue.
Yes, ma'am, that's me. Stephen Willis, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. The case number is LCE 20-01039. Address is 1129 North Stella Avenue. Owner is listed as Joel King. The violation is care of premises. The date of the violation was February 6, 2020. It was to be corrected by February 6, 2020. This is a repeat violation reference case LCE 18-05595 and case LCE 19-02721 for grounds. Photos were taken on October 30th, 2020. City recommends impose $50 per day fine effective February 6, 2020 and run until compliant.
All that's been cleaned up.
What's the latest photo you got?
It should be coming up.
Mr. Willis, when were those photographs taken?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
When were those photographs taken?
Those are February 14th. There should be a more current photograph in the,
Yes.
We've been cleaning that up. Most of that came out of that red building and in the shed because we were throwing out my nephew's stuff.
And Mr. King, are you saying that it has been cleared up or that you will clear it up?
It's 99% cleaned up. Now, I might have about 2 or 3 of his tires
picture of like a,
left or something like that, but my neighbor next door always throws his garbage on my land.
Sounds like you have a bad neighbor.
And I have been cleaning up as what I can. The trailer is my nephew's. And I've been shoving all that stuff of his that he's keeping inside his trailer. That right there, I've cleaned that mostly all up. My neighbor is shoving his stuff on the side of my house. He shoves boards, chairs, tires, things like that, and throws them in my yard. Hell, I found 2 of his dead dogs in my yard.
Mr. King, I do find that there has been a violation. I suggest that maybe you have a conversation with your neighbor so that this stops. And I do find that there will be a $50 per day charge until the violation has been cleared up.
See, that's not mine. Right there, that's not my bag. My neighbor threw it in my yard. And he does that every day. I can tell him to stop and he won't stop.
That's my ruling.
And the stuff out to the road, we throw that out to the road. I don't know how I'm being fined for that.
Well, Mr. King, you have time to clean it up. Otherwise,
I
if you
have
don't,
been cleaning it up.
thank you, sir. If
It
you
has
and if
been.
and if you have cleaned it up, then you won't be subject to a fine. So very good.
But
Thank you.
We have been cleaning it up.
Very good, Mr. King. Excellent. Get your paperwork, please, from the clerk. Please grab your paperwork from the clerk. If you have cleaned it up, then you will not be subject to a fine.
Okay.
If you haven't, there will be a $50 per day fine imposed.
Who did learn now? You're done.
If we, sir, before you leave, Mr. King, I think we just need to get clarity on the deadlines for these cases and the fine amounts. When the case is a repeat violation,
I don't know. I don't understand how it's a repeat violation.
if I could just finish and then we're going to address all of that, hopefully, okay? When it's a repeat violation, what the statute says is that the fine will accrue from the date of the notice of violation that initiates the repeat violation case. So if that is in fact what happened here, then the fine will be running. It will have ran since February if that's the date of the notice of violation. So I think we should just get clarity on that for both of these cases. And maybe we can hear from the officer about what the repeat violation was, what the basis for that was, so that Mr. King can understand what the city's alleging there.
yes, sir, there are, for this case here, LCE 20-01039, the repeat violation references case is LCE 18-05595, and then there was case LCE 19-02721, and these were for grounds.
Okay. I
Please.
had all that cleaned up and I got it all closed.
Okay, so that's what they're saying, is that it's a repeat violation
Yeah, but I had it
because it
cleaned up
was
and it was closed.
cleaned up and then it was dirty again after you had previously already been found in violation. So they're saying because it happened a second time, this is a repeat violation, which changes the way that fines are imposed under the law.
Okay.
And so, Mr. Willis, what is the date of the repeat violation?
The date for this current violation was February 6, 2020. The other two occurred in 2018, and the second one was 2019. I don't have the exact dates. That was before I took over this area.
And your suggestion is a $50 per day fine beginning February 6th, 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have that calculated by any chance, or shall I? I can do it.
No, ma'am, the fine, Jim Daney, Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Lakeland, the property is not in compliance, so the fine would be effective February the 6th and run until the property is brought into compliance, which it would continue to run because the property is not in compliance at this time.
I see.
So what it is the state statute states that a person is in repeat violation for the same violation, but not necessarily the same property. So if someone owns a property somewhere else within a city and was found to be in violation of that code previously, for the next 5 years, the property owner may be cited as a repeat violator under that statute. And in this case, there was 2 previous cases since 2018, so the repeat violation is what we're asking you to find effective February the 6th of 2020 and run until the property is brought into compliance on each of those cases. If we need to reopen the derelict vehicle case, that's entirely up to you, but that's what we're asking.
I understand. Thank you very much. And I do find that recommendation for all, I think this is now the 3rd case. There were 2 previous.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Yes,
then,
ma'am. But, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The previous 2 cases are in compliance, so those are already dealt with. The only reason that we're giving you those 2 cases previous so that you'll know how many times that the property was in violation of the same code, and this would be the 3rd time, so we would ask that, just to verify that it's in repeat violation for you.
thank you. Okay. I do find that this is the 3rd repeat violation. I will impose the recommendation from the hearing officer of $50 per day for each of the previous violations. And sir, will you announce those case numbers just so that we're all clear?
Yes, ma'am. The first case was LCE 18-05595. The second case was LCE 19-02721. And then now the third case that we're discussing today is LCE 20-01039. All at address 1129 North Stella Avenue.
Very good. Mr. Dan, is there anything else for the record?
Nope.
All right, thank you.
What if the property owner is dead?
I'm
What
sorry.
if the property owner is dead?
Sir, we've heard your case. You are a repeat violation.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the owner is dead though.
Such is life. I'm sorry. It's your property. The trash is on your property. That
King's
is your
property.
responsibility.
It's Jewel King's property.
Sir, if you don't like my ruling, you absolutely
just
have
saying, how-
you have the right to appeal at the full Code Enforcement Board hearing, and Madam Clerk can give you that date.
Okay. Will they be telling me how much I owe at least? for the
Yes,
next
if you
30
will have a
years?
seat, when we take a recess, we will tell you the full amount due.
For the next-
Sir, there is no amount you owe until you bring the property into compliance. You need to do something with the vehicle, and you need to clean the property up. Once the,
Clean the property up.
but there's still evidence this stuff is there. Once you get it cleaned up, you call the code enforcement officer to come out and inspect the property. The fine will stop that day. Right now, the fine is going to continue to run at $50 a day until the property is brought into compliance for both cases.
Next case I have is LCE 20-01204. It's 1313 East Main Street on page 27. Property owner is Fernando Middens. Code Enforcement Officer Christian Perry.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-01204, property address 1313 East Main Street. The owner is stated in the agenda. The property was cited for violations of Ordinance 5425, prohibited use. Date of violation, February 14th, 2020, and to be corrected date of February 24th, 2020. Reinspection on February 25th, 2020, and photos on October 30th, 2020 shows that the property is still in violation. At this time, the city recommends that the property be brought into compliance by December 6, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I'm sorry, you said December 6, 2020, or I didn't hear that.
Or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
Sir?
Yes, ma'am. I rented that property to a young man that was starting a car dealership, and his game plan was he would buy wrecked vehicles that were salvageable, and then he would accumulate all the parts. He didn't sell any parts. He's not running a junkyard. He didn't dismantle the cars. He would acquire the vehicles, buy the parts in the market, get them all together, and once he got them all together, he would send them to a shop where they would assemble the car, and then he would sell them. Obviously, with the COVID thing, his business went down the tubes, and he is now in the process of trying to renew his dealer's license, but he is not going to reopen in my location. So all we're asking for is to give us 90 days for him to be able to sell his inventory and move from that property. Now, everything he was doing prior to that was perfectly legal, except for the fact that now he lost his license. The fact that the cars were salvageable, not junked, was his game plan. And he was doing pretty good at the beginning, frankly. Just when this COVID thing hit, his clientele just dried up, and he couldn't afford to keep, he hasn't been able to pay the rent on the property since March. And he has gotten rid of about 8 vehicles so far, by the way. Like that vehicle is no longer there. I think that one's still there. But there's there was 5 or 6 vehicles that have been towed out already. So all we're asking is for him not to lose every penny that he has invested, to give him some time to be able to move the inventory and sell it. And then he will not renew his license in that location.
Do you have a response?
Well, at this time, the business, like you said, the license has expired, but also there's no utilities on there since March. And to try and get some more time to get the vehicles out of there, try to sell them from there. If he's trying to sell them from that location, he doesn't have a license to operate a retail business there. And on top of that, he doesn't have a license to store vehicles there either. It's not a storage lot. So at this time, the vehicles being there are in violation 100%.
I do find that there has been a violation. I will give you 30 days to get those vehicles off of the property. It sounds like it's a term of art. It still looks like a junkyard to me.
Could I ask you for one item? Could we give us 60 days to do it? All right, let me do it. If he gets his license renewed, would that make a difference?
To me, no. No, it would not make a difference. And I will give you 30 days to come into compliance. Otherwise, you will be subject to $50 per day fee until the property is back up to code.
Can we get him to announce his name on record?
Yes, sir. Ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And sir, would you please announce your name for the record?
I'm sorry,
Your name?
30 days?
Your name.
30 days, you said.
What is your name for the record, sir? Can you state your name
Oh,
for the
my name
record?
is Fernando Midense.
Fernando. Mirense. Fernando Mirense.
Midense, that's correct.
Very good. That is my ruling. You have 30 days, sir.
30 days?
Yes,
I
sir.
will let him know that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You get an order in the mail. You'll get an order in the mail.
Next case I have is LCE 20-02383. It's 1058 South Florida Avenue. It's on page 35. The owner is Stephen Bent, and code enforcement officer is Ms. Kaiser.
I can do it. I can do it.
Oh, you can do it. Angela Kaiser, Code Enforcement Officer of the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-02383, address 1058 South Florida Avenue, owners Stephen Bent. Violations of Section 86-3 for dirt, filth, etc. on streets and alleys prohibited, and Section 86.4 for offensive liquids prohibited on streets and public places. Date of the violations, May 7th, 2020, to be corrected the same day. Reinspection was also the same day. The violation at this location was that paint was washed down the street and sidewalks into the stormwater system, which goes directly into the lakes. The nature of this type of offense, generally we see it occur, one time. It's not always that case, but in this particular case, it did only occur one time due to the fact, this type of act, generally, the city would ask for a fine of $5,000 to be imposed. It's a one-time fine that's imposed, and it's because of the intentional act of it and the fact that it appears that there was so much. At the time of this occurrence, that was in the middle of COVID, and manpower was short because of all the different reductions because of COVID. So there was not a way that this violation could be corrected. Often when something like this gets dumped, the owner is given the option to have it cleaned out. He made that offer, but someone from the city has to be on site to monitor an outside service when they enter the city storm drain system to make sure they don't damage anything else, to make sure they get everything out like they're supposed to, and that nothing else gets flushed into the lake system. So because that was not available at the time, the city has reconsidered recommending the maximum of $5,000. So at this time, due to the nature of the violation, the fact that it was a deliberate act of washing the paint down the storm system, the owner's admittance of the violation and the offer to try to correct it, the city's asking for a reduced fine of $2,000 to be imposed as a one-time payment.
Mr. Bent?
Yes, like she said, it's a one-time, and there absolutely is no evidence there that we were pouring paint down the drain. You had pictures in the record there of this, and you can see it still is coated with paint. This wasn't cleaned out. It's probably that sitting right there at the edge. This wasn't even cleaned out. The roller handle itself.
Hey,
Sir.
Mr. Bent, you got to speak into the microphone. I can't hear you.
This is what was cleaned out, and one brush. The amount of paint that could be in this, I don't see how it could be more than 6 ounces. That's not raw paint flowing out. You can see he's down there, it's my employee, cleaning out the roller. So my contention is the amount of paint that's involved here is a very, very minute amount. You have a picture in the record there of that 5-gallon bucket. I've got that in the car too. That bucket is empty and the paint is still, the dried paint is still in it. That wasn't cleaned out. This tray wasn't cleaned out. The paint involved is 6 ounces of paint, whatever amount would have come out of this roller, and a single brush. And you can see from the pictures there, there's no real, if we were dumping paint, there'd be more on the sidewalk than what you see. And if I could approach the bench, it's mentioned that it needed to be cleaned out in the sewer. I have a picture here of what's actually in the sewer. May I come up and?
Yes, sir.
No, it needs to go over to her so she can add it to the record.
Just put it on the overhead camera.
While they're putting that up, I just want to let you know, also clarify for everyone that in order to impose the elevated one-time fine that they're asking for, you will need to make a finding that the violation is irreparable or irreversible in nature.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, the city would argue that it is irreparable and irreparable because as he's showing the picture with some of the flow in the storm system, that's obviously not the same amount that was running down the street. So therefore it entered the system and ran down to the lake prior to him taking this picture. And once it does that, you can't repair it. You can't correct that.
Ms. Kaiser, what is the cost to remedy toxins like that going into the city's storm? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. I've got a representative from the Lakes and Storm Water Department here, and her name's Sandra Pope. If you want to come over here, she can give you a little information about what kind of damage this can do to a lake system. She can also give you ideas of past cases where they've seen where different companies have been called out to do cleanups and what those costs have been.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
First I'd like to say that,
Would you mind just stating your name just for the record?
sure, my name's Sandra Pope, and I'm an environmental specialist with the Lakes and Stormwater Division for the City of Lakeland.
Thank you, Ms. Pope.
Paint is a hazardous chemical, meaning it is a toxic chemical. And in our lakes, it can have negative impacts to wildlife, plant life, and water quality. It can clog gills of fish, depriving them of oxygen, harm aquatic insects, and reduce photosynthesis in plants. Oftentimes, there are chemicals in paint that can even bioaccumulate, causing poisoning throughout the food chain when it hits the waterways. And it also actually has the potential to contaminate groundwater, so even a little bit of hazardous waste has a negative impact to our lakes. In my experience with cleanups, using outside agencies who are experienced with hazardous waste cleanup, those kinds of cleanups can cost multiple thousands of dollars. For a specific example, I've seen a cleanup, not exactly the same chemical, of an RV holding tank, which is raw sewage. Just that amount, the individual ended up paying $1,500. And that's not even, it's biohazard, but it's not the same kind of chemical. So just getting these types of equipment needed out to clean these kinds of storm drains, you would need a flusher truck, a vacuum truck. Those trucks usually cost about $600,000. So even getting them on site is going to be pretty expensive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the fact that we did put diluted paint down, But again, we're using water. It's water-based paint, not oil-based paint. There's a huge difference in volatile organic chemicals in latex versus oiled paints. Again, that's the amount of paint that came out of the roller and the brush that went down the drain. And I do have a real short, two more things to show to you too. A picture and then a real short video.
Okay.
This picture is, I walked up the street just north, looking back towards the bike shop, and when we get it, and what it is a picture of the roadway where it's been painted. You can see that storm grate's been painted, and you can see that's not the storm grate that's in question. The bike shop is just down the street there. What that's depicting is when they paint the lines on the road, they didn't bother to turn the paint machine off as they rolled over the grate. Now that particular grate, you can see it stands out in great relief, the white paint that they put on it, because the grate is so thick. The grate in question, go back to the grate that we put the paint down, and you can imagine the amount of paint that went down when they painted those lines. I counted, there's 44 of those grates up along the Dixieland section of Florida Avenue per each side. Every one of those grates has that amount of paint that was put on when they painted the road because somebody couldn't bother to turn the paint machine off as they rolled over the grates. I have one quick video to show you.
Yes, sir.
So it's that one, the 119. So just touch that. Yeah, you just got to touch. But it'll start right away. Seriously. Where did it go? Okay, so you can restart. Keep the button on.
The Zoom is right there.
Again, my contention is we put maybe 6 ounces of paint down the drain. Here, there's the bike shop right there. So I started the video right at that point.
All right, start the video. He wants the video started.
Yeah, it's a video. So press the center button, the arrow button. There you go. So notice the date on that. That's the date of the day of the infraction later on in the afternoon. There's the storm grate. It's a real open design. You can see the white line where the city or the contractor painted the white line and painted that grate. Up the upper right-hand edge of there is, well, this is all the paint that got put on from the city, from the road people when they painted the grate. Not my paint. That's actually wrong.
Mr. Bent, I think I understand. I understand your point. And I appreciate your additional pictures and video and testimony.
One more real quick one.
I just switched it over.
This one.
Is this a video?
And another point about the lake. I've lived here for 60 years. The bike shop's been there on South Florida Avenue for 60 years. We don't have any infractions. We haven't done anything like that. It was simply a mistake that we made. This is showing down into the drain the day of, and you can see there's no massive paint. There's one little spot. You can see it once in a while. It's coming right down there in the corner. That's the one little spot of paint that's actually, you can see it right there. That's actually in that storm drain. It was suggested that we should rent equipment to go and clean the mass of paint out of the storm drain. There is no mass of paint. We put 6 ounces of paint, 8 ounces maybe, down that storm drain. And yes, I realize that some of that might have gotten all the way to the lake. Most of it didn't. It was such a small quantity. But there's something else to consider too. That lake, all the cars that are driving around it, that's one thing. How about all the outboard engines that are running in that lake? The volatile organic compounds in that paint are volatile. They evaporated out as it rolled down the street there and got into the storm drain before it ever got to the lake. Every single outboard engine on that lake is injecting through a wet exhaust system, injecting all that directly into the water. Those older 2-stroke outboard motors, you can go to the EPA. I've got documents here talking about it. Those outboard motors, as much as 1/3 of the gas goes directly into the water. 1/3 of the gas is unburned. Even the newest outboard motors, 10% of that's still happening. That's a huge amount. Every single boat on that lake every day is putting many times more pollutants into the lake than what happened at this source, a 1/4 mile straight line as a crow flies away from the lake.
Mr. Bent, the
So
issue
all
that I'm having is that, number one, I don't appreciate that your, I guess, lack of responsibility for taking care of those actions. I can tell from looking at the pictures that that's certainly more than 6 ounces. I'm a mom, and so 6 ounces is important to me. That's not 6 ounces worth of paint.
It looks like more, but all we did was clean up.
I understand that.
From the pictures, this is, we didn't even clean this. I wasn't there that day. But
Nevertheless, it's.
so it was a very, nobody.
The video, sir,
contention
I
was
appreciate your testimony. I have made my ruling. I've already decided. But I appreciate everything that you have put on, and you did a very good job presenting your case. I do not find that it was 6 ounces. It looks substantially more than that. Furthermore, the street side of a shop front is not the appropriate place for anyone to be cleaning their materials for a number of different reasons. I do find that the damage was irreparable. I would hope that from this point forward, you would take greater care of where you and or your employees.
Absolutely, I
clean.
take full responsibility. I wasn't there, but it's not the way I would have done it. It never dawned on me to instruct him where to go to clean up. Just didn't think of it.
It's an
And
expensive
again,
lesson to learn.
I can't stress enough, you can see him cleaning. That's what he was doing. Nobody was pouring paint down the sewer, and that's exactly what we were accused of. And that's absolutely not the case.
I hear you. I hear you.
That
I
was all.
appreciate it.
And I take responsibility. Yes, we did do that, but it's not as, that was the roller. It's not a whole lot.
It does look bad in those videos.
It does look bad in that video.
I am going to find that the damage is irreparable. In light of the fact that this is 2020 and everyone, including small business owners, is being hurt, I'm going to impose an $1,800 fine. And it's a reduced fine. It's an expensive lesson to learn. Please make sure it doesn't happen again.
I would ask that that's excessive compared to the amount of damage every outboard engine does on that lake every single day.
That is my ruling, sir.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next case I have is on page 36. It is case number PER 1909203. It's 1501 Ariana Street, number 4EE Echo Echo. And I have Officer Carlos Cruz.
Did
Come
he
on,
say
officer.
9203? Yeah, 9203? Thank you.
And sir, would you please announce your name for the record?
Sure, my name is Marcelo Ramirez.
Thank you. Officer Cruz.
Carlos Cruz, City of Lakeland Building Inspection Department, case number PER 1909203. Property address is as stated in the agenda. Owners as stated in the agenda. Violations for Florida Building Code Section 105.1, permit required. Date of violation is 12/23/2019, to be corrected by 1/22/2020. Reinspection of 2/24/2020 shows the shed still remains. As of yesterday, violation still exists. City asks for compliance by 11/16/2020 or a $50 day fine be imposed. The shed was installed without a permit and electrical work done to the shed. Shed installed in the front of the property without permits. Building with electrical permits required.
Very good. Sir?
I came over a couple of weeks after the fact that Mr. Cruz knocked on my door and came here to ask for a permit. So the whole situation is, when I lost my property due to foreclosure, had a work stoppage on my part. There was a property in Bedrock community that we used to drive. The property was abandoned. This is where we live now. And the reason we used to go there is because my in-laws live in that property. And since we needed a place to live, the wife and I decided to renovate the property, right? And sort of like fix it up to our needs and make it livable so we could live there. The problem was that you know very well that when you start renovating a property, you put stuff outside, plywood, tiles, bathroom equipment and stuff like that because you're renovating the house. So the thing is, I used to get also, reported by the city as well. A young lady used to pass by there with a Lakeland car, and she used to give me announcements, says, listen, you got to clean up the property and everything like that. So I said, well, I will clean up the property, but the thing is, I'm working on the property. So you know what I'm saying? It's like I don't know. All the constructions that I ever work with, in homes, you always have some stuff outside in order to incorporate it inside the house when you're ready to do that particular job. So in this case here, I asked the property owners from the Bedrock communities, I said, is there a way that I could buy a shed, right? And they said, yes, you could buy a property. I said, where could I put it? I said, to Jack and his wife, because they were running the Bedrock properties back then. And he said, you could put it on the side of the house. So a few weeks later, I went ahead and purchased a shed, a 9x10, for about $3,400. They came over, the shed place, I guess they never required for me to get any, documentations other than the plans that they gave me. And we put the shed there. But the thing is, for me though, right, is that this is not the only shed. There are other sheds in like 28EE. There's another one in 13 right in front. They have sheds there. And when talking to those people, they never, had any problems whatsoever with the city. But if I went ahead and bought this, right, I'm being sort of being blamed that it's against the ruling of the city and so forth. So,
sir, can you clarify your relationship to the property owner?
She's my wife.
Your wife owns the property?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And she's here?
Yes. So the thing is,
you know, if you look at another property down the street, 2080E, they have the same shed, right? But the problem is, it's not on the side like I put it. I could move it. I could move it to the side and make it just adjacent the way they have it on 2080E. I could do that. That's what I suggested it, you know, to do. The electrical, it was out. The second day this gentleman came and knocked on my door, I disconnected everything. So there's no electrical there.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that the reason you purchased the shed was because you were remodeling the interior of the home behind it. Is that right?
No, that was my home that I'm living in now. I was renovating that home. Yeah.
Right, but that was the purpose of buying the shed, was to
Yes.
store the equipment, so it was not unsightly. Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, I needed a place to keep all the equipment that I had outside because I was getting dinged by the city back then also on those things. So I said to Jack, Jack, I need to do something about it. He says, well, get yourself a shed. Get yourself a shed and put the stuff in there. I did not realize, my dear lady, that I needed to get a license, a permit, and all that stuff. That is the only thing that I feel kind of responsible for.
Is it your intent, thank you for your candor, is it your intention to make the shed a permanent fixture on the property?
You know, whatever it will take. I mean, the thing is that I would like to keep it there because I bought it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, you know, it's worthiness because I have my bike there, I got my work equipment there and stuff like that. But, you know, no one in the vicinity complains about my shed. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, I want to make sure that, you know, I'm not breaking any rules and things like that. So.
Appreciate it. Mr. Cruz, is it the issue, am I understanding that we don't have an issue with that the shed is there or that it's permanent, but he needs a permit from the
Well,
city?
he does need a permit for the shed, but the shed cannot be in front of the structure. It has to be, like, if he wants to move it inside that cove area, that's fine, but it cannot sit in front of the structure. And he has to get a permit to have the shed, and for the electrical work that took place, he has to get a permit for that. That solves the issue, but he needs a permit.
Okay. So then I do find that there is a violation, but I will give you time to move the shed so that it is not in violation, and then that.
I could do that, yes. And the electrical.
He needs to get his permit.
Yeah.
Right, I wasn't done. Yeah, I appreciate it. So you have 30 days to move the shed, but you also have until November 16th, 2020 to get that permit. That's.
Are you giving him 30 days?
30 days to move the shed, 2 weeks to get the permit.
You can't do that.
Can't do 2. It's just for a permanent.
Yeah, if we could clarify,
Sure.
it's from what I can tell, and I don't have the notice of violation, but it appears to be that the only violation that was noticed for was the fact that there was no permit. About moving the shed, it may be something that he might have to do in order to get compliance with the permit, but I think once the permit is issued, then that's going to cure the violation, because the violation is that he did the work without a permit. Once the permit's issued, then he can move the shed to come into compliance with the permit or whatever, but that'll be complying with the permit, not complying with the code enforcement action. I don't know if that clears.
Just one second. Jim Daney, Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Lakeland. I was just talking to Carlos about this, and what it is he needs to move that shed, and he's going to have to provide drawings for that shed where its location is going to be to get the permit. So he's not going to be able to move the shed and then get the permit. He's going to need to get the permit and move the shed to the place that it's going to be permanently installed. So in that case, I mean, I think your original order of 30 days to get the permit is probably reasonable, because he's going to have to move the shed and get the permit. So the 30 days is probably more reasonable.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, that is my ruling then. You do seem like you're willing to do whatever it takes to come into compliance, which I appreciate.
Absolutely, sure.
You have 30 days to come into compliance, to get that permit, and whatever is contained within that permit, you have 30 days to do it. Do you understand?
Gotcha.
All right. Anything else for the record? Clarification? All right. Very good, thank you.
Thank you, miss. Thank you all.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I don't have anyone else.
Did you sign in? Did y'all sign in? I know, but did you come down here and sign in?
Sir, did you sign in?
No, he come in later.
Sir, have you signed in today? Come on down and let her know your case number and where your address and all, so we can get you.
It's okay.
It's 10 o'clock. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess so we can get everyone signed in? And
Yes,
then
ma'am.
we can get back and go from here.
Page 37.
One by one. What's his name?
What's your name? Are you going to be speaking for him?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Carlos and Cortez.
Your last name?
C-O-R-T-E-S.
Okay. If I put it C-O-R.
T-E-S?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And Carlos is the first name on Cortez?
There's the Carlos.
Carlos Cortez?
Carlos Cortez, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Carlos is over there if you want to talk to him about your case.
He's standing up right there. Oh, he's on the phone, sorry.
Okay, hold on just a second. Robinson.
Carlos, they're here to talk to you.
Page 17. It's the 2100.
Okay.
Can I write on this? Can I write on this? Okay. You have a seat and then we'll call you up.
What page is this other gentleman on?
Page 17 for him. The guy just left.
No, this one here, sorry. What's the address?
None.
213 Pear.
He's on page.
203?
Yeah, it's on page 1.
Okay.
Oh,
Your name?
your name down.
Okay. Hey, Jim.
So we just need to swear them in?
Hey, Jim. Over here. Do you want the officers to see about they can do something?
Yes, definitely.
So, your officer number, you might want to talk to him. 17.
President.
Still have presents?
You're Mr. Robinson. You're Mr. Robinson.
I think he's on page 17.
17.
2100.
Everything else is this isn't like being on your own. There's no, absolutely, there's no, well, it's been 8 months since we did this. Yeah. Especially for people young, they've only done it once, so we did this.
My hearing aids are going in and out. Sometimes I
There,
can hear people back here and I can't.
even if a
The program that's on my phone.
case goes straight to the board,
My hearing aids go.
Got it.
treat it as a new case, and then you would read it if they don't show up or not. You would still read it in. Yeah. So because there was some debate there for a while, like in the local government attorneys listserv. It's like a email group that where attorneys share information and stuff. And there was some debate there for a little bit about whether or not that you had to do that.
Yeah, because the statute says,
Well, right.
statute says that you have to give them
Testimony.
initially, you have to give them a reasonable amount of time to make a violation. And then if they come to the
Yeah, it's just not raining.
or the magistrate or the law,
See ya, you too.
not a reasonable amount of time.
Thank you for being here.
The reason for that, like, in cases, there's no order, there has to be a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, I guess the question is, if the code officers can just, make recommendations, and then if people don't show up, that if the hearing officer could just default, give a default, and just take all the recommendations and not have any testimony or whatever.
If we don't have any recommendations, we have to present the recommendation to the new cases.
Yeah, but that's because if nobody's there, you can just put it all in the.
So how would it work? I don't know how that would work. Because of,
be any different.
derelict vehicle cases, 10 days, housing cases, 30, zoning cases, this, all different times. So I mean, if there was a blanket motion, would that just be automatic?
It would be the same like a blanket motion. It would just be, whatever the code officer recommends. It would be the same. You just wouldn't have to read it in.
Well, they would.
I guess why do they have to read it in? I guess is because what some attorneys think is that because the statute says that you have to provide testimony, so that
The hearing today?
this is kind of weird. To mute.
Did our hearing officer leave us? What? Mhm.
Yeah, so when all these are done, we just start from the beginning.
Right.
They came in after we started signing.
Oh, no, the P, the- that's anybody that showed up, and then some of them we scratched out because they had done summaries. And then we took the tabs off of them so that you wouldn't call those. So, well,
Yeah, we normally do summaries, we don't do it like this, we usually do the summaries beforehand. Yeah. We forego that one this morning. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, one of the things I didn't tell you, is they have to state their name before they start their, yeah.
See, the
when they
building
start
inspection divisional, when they go do their inspections,
state their name.
when they go do their inspections for the fence,
Forgot that.
they'll know if it's on your property or theirs. And if it's on your property, then they're gonna deny that, they're gonna fail the inspection and tell them they're gonna move it.
We haven't done this since March, so it's trying to get.
At the end, there should be a pin though. If you got any kind of metal detector, you should be able to find a pin.
today also.
Yeah, yeah, that's $100.
Yeah, but after it rains and grass grows over it, and,
There was
I
three.
mean, unless it's on concrete,
Summaries, so there may only be two.
it's hard to find sometimes. But you need a metal detector, and then you can just about find it when it beeps. You scrape that grass off there, and you'll see it.
We think he's-
Normally, they run straight back. I don't know where you live, but very rarely are they on an angle. They usually square it off. Yeah.
Andrew. Oh, we're finding out. Is this one a summary? How many days?
90.
Thank you.
What's up? Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm from the city of Tampa, and I started here in March, so the process is a little bit different.
Are you guys ready?
Whenever you are.
Okay,
You're in charge.
so we gotta call Dennis, is it?
You're the boss.
817.
Madam Clerk, are you ready?
Yeah, we'll need to swear the two in that didn't
What's
get
that?
sworn. We'll have to swear the two in that didn't get sworn in.
All right, anybody who is here that was not previously sworn in, would you please rise to be sworn in by the clerk?
Did you get sworn in, Mariah? Okay, you'll have to stand and raise your hand.
Well,
If you're gonna speak,
you also.
You affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth? Okay, Mr. Robinson, you can come up to the podium.
Page 17 at the bottom.
Case number, this is case number LCE 20-00788, 2100 South Crystal Lake Drive. And the owners is Karen and Keith Robinson, and the code enforcement officer is Dennis Browning. Mr. Browning?
Dennis Browning, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is case LCE 20-00788, the address 2100 South Crystal Lake Drive. The owner is Keith and Karen Robinson. Property was cited for violation of Ordinance 5425 in relations to commercial vehicles, box trucks. The date of violation was January 29, 2020, to be corrected by February the 8th, 2020. Reinspection on February the 10th, 2020 showed the violation remained. Last photo taken on November the 2nd, 2020 showed the violation remained at that time as well. City's recommendation is to bring the property into compliance by November the 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I'm sorry, the compliance was 11/16/20
Yes, ma'am.
or $50?
11/16/2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
Mr. Robinson?
I often rent a U-Haul truck and put my mower in the back of it to go to another property to mow the grass. This isn't the same U-Haul truck. I'll rent it for 2 or 3 days at a time. A couple weeks later or a month later, get it again. And I wasn't aware that you can't even have a rental truck. I mean, how are you supposed to, can't park it on the curb and, you got to put it in your yard to load stuff into it. You understand what I mean? I'm renting the truck, but it's not a permanent fixture and it's not there but for 2 and 3 days and then taking it back to the rental place.
Mr. Browning, are you the individual that's been regularly going to the property?
I'm not the one that originally opened the case, but since I've been assigned to that area, I've noticed the U-Haul truck there several.
I'll be returning it again tonight, probably getting it in another 2 weeks.
And how often do you do this?
Once or twice or several times a month, but I don't, it's not like it's,
Sounds expensive to keep renting.
if I had it there since January, you can imagine how much the rental would have been.
All right.
I mean, what am I supposed to do to, put it in the yard to get my tractor on it to go to the other property, then load it and then come back and then take it back to the rental place? As this picture here, wait a minute, go back one. If you take a look at the picture of the rear of that truck. Okay, see where the tailgate would be, and you see where this one over here where the wood is? That's the most recent truck. I don't know if you can enlarge that to get the number of the truck. See that it's a different
you don't need to.
serial number, huh?
You don't need to. It's got 2 different pictures on it.
Yeah, that's obvious.
Oh, on the side you mean?
Right.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Let me see the other one again. Okay, there's 2 different trucks. So, it'll be gone tonight. I'm gonna take it back. So, does that mean it's over with or what?
Well, can you clarify if there's any exceptions for the parking of the commercial vehicle in the code? And
Jim Daney, Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Lakeland. There is no exception. The code is pretty specific on box trucks. They can't be there.
But can you use it for a duration of time for moving or loading?
It seems to be it's on a quite consistent basis, though. there in 2 to 3 times a week, which is,
A
or a
month.
month. So
Yeah, 2 days a week.
that's practically day in and day out. And what is the purpose for your moving? What are you moving?
Tractor for mowing the lawn, I'll put it in the back and then take it out to the other property and then take the truck back. Or, you know, sometimes my wife likes collectibles. Sometimes we'll go and buy a hutch somewhere, so I use the truck to move a hutch in it.
Mr. Browning, anything else?
I mean, I'm going to return it tonight, but it's not the same truck.
I can inspect it Monday.
Oh, that'd be fine.
All right, well.
The problem that I have is the code is pretty specific about not keeping box trucks in residential districts. So I understand what you're saying about taking it back today, but as soon as you bring it back on Tuesday or Wednesday or next Thursday or whatever day it is,
You get it like on a Sunday
the
night.
property's in violation again, because unless it, I mean, and I understand his point also that it's consistently being used and gone. Is this moving this tractor, is that for some kind of commercial?
No, it's just a lawn tractor. I got a ramp and put it there. I used to go on the north side, ride my bicycle up there, which is 4.5 miles, put it in a pickup truck. But if you get rain or something, I've been renting this box truck with a half a mile where I live, up at I. Tyler Food Mart on Crombie Road. Then I rent it and I take it back.
Mr. Simpson, do you see anything that would help us out for where he could keep the truck
I mean, I
for
don't
2-3 days
but
at a
I can
time?
get 1 day at a time if that's necessary.
I'm just reviewing the code, and what's been noticed here is the city's land development code and code section 5.17.3.6, which is the parking of commercial vehicles and commercial trailers regulated provision, and it doesn't really have any exceptions. I mean, other than it says 1 commercial vehicle per dwelling unit shall be permitted, provided each of the following requirements is met. The gross vehicle weight must be less than 12,500 pounds. The vehicle must be less than 80 inches wide and less than 26 feet in length. Only 2 axles on the road and not equipped with air brakes, refrigeration equipment, hydraulic lifts, cranes, loading ramps, or similar equipment. And then it goes on to say that notwithstanding the following vehicles shall be prohibited in all residentially zoned lots, tracts, lots, pieces, or parcels of land within the city. And the third one listed there is box trucks. So the code specifically prevents it. The only thing that I can see is where there would be some discretion for the hearing officer to make a finding is what exactly it means to park in the residentially zoned area. How long does the vehicle need to be there in order to be determined to be parked in the residential area, which I think would be a finding of fact for the hearing officer to determine, and how long that can be.
That's what I'm trying to determine. Do I need to rent it for 1 day at a time, in, out, or can I rent it for 2 days at a time or 3 days at a time?
It may be that parking overnight is what you would find a violation, but the code doesn't really have that kind of flexibility in it built into it, so it's up to the hearing officer to decide.
And the code in this case specifically says box trucks. That's prohibited. So.
Right.
Well, how about the pickup truck? Would that be all right?
Sure. It's not a box truck?
Well, I could switch back to a pickup truck then. Okay, that's all I want to clarify.
Or if you had an enclosed trailer with no signage on it, you could use that
Right.
any time too, as long as it's parked in front of the house.
I think, agreed. I think what's getting you is the fact that it is a boxed truck. So,
Rental or not?
correct.
Okay.
Yep,
I'll
absolutely.
be taking it back today, so you can
Well-
come swing back on Monday.
Yes,
But
sir.
for the record, Mr. Browning, thank you, and I appreciate that you're willing to comply. Thank you for the update on the rule. For the record, I do find that you have You have until November 20th to correct the violation, otherwise there will be a $50 per day fee imposed.
Nope.
But it sounds like we've already resolved it.
No, November 16th.
November 16th, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir, November 16th. Yes. Thank you.
The next one's going to be on page 37. You gentlemen can come up.
Yeah, that's coming.
I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, what was that page number?
37. Really?
And I have, for the record, PER 2000504. It's 918 Marcotte Street. I have Mr. Is it Kayas?
Yeah.
As the owners, and Mr. Cruz as the officer. Mr. Cruz?
Carlos Cruz, City of Lakeland Building Inspections. Case number PER 2000504. Property address is stated in the agenda. Ordinance as stated in the agenda. Violations for Florida Building Code Section 105.1 permit required. Date of violation is 1/16/2020 to be corrected by 2/15/2020. Reinspection of 2/17/2020. As of yesterday, violations still exist. We're going to change the city recommendation. City asked for compliance by 12/10 of 2020, or a $50 fine be imposed.
Are you doing 60 days? I mean,
We're going to go 30 days.
12/6.
Was that the wrong date?
Yeah, it's 12/6.
12/10?
12-6.
12/6.
So the recommendation is 30 days to comply, which is 12-6.
12/6, yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Kayas, all right, can you do that?
He gonna have 30 days for taking the permits, so, cause when he buy it, nobody told him that he needs some permits to fix it. So he bought it, and the people from there tell him he can work with it, and it was like that. So he was fixing it, he don't know, he came from Puerto Rico, so he don't know, like, if he needs permits and all that.
Okay.
So when he received the letter, they say they canceled it because all this COVID-19 stuff, but he want to do the right thing. He want to get the papers and because he's keeping the house, he already fixed it.
And just, I'm so sorry to bother you. Are you also Mr. Kayas?
Yeah, I'm his nephew.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And so it sounds like he wants to comply. It sounds like we're giving him time to comply. So can he go and get that permit in the next 30 days?
We appreciate it if you do that.
Very good. Done.
Where he can go and get it, or where he can do the permits, or go and get it.
You can get the permit downstairs here.
Carlos can help you out and tell you where to go.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. And anyone else left?
Nope, we're good.
All right. So Madam Clerk, I'll follow your lead.
We start from the page 1.
Okay. So, page 1, we have LCE 19-05284. It's 203 Pear Street.
That's a summary.
All right. Let's see. So then, next we have LCE 19-6610, 1712 Bayview Drive. Officer Povey.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland, case number LCE 19-06610. Address is 1712 Bayview Drive. Owners as stated in the agenda. Violations of care of premises, open storage and junk. Date of the violation is 9/4/2019 to be corrected by 9/19/2019. Reinspected on February 7th, 2020. Photos and reinspection on October 30th, 2020 to be, the city recommends that the property come into compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
Okay, I do find that there has been a violation. Owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next, I have LCE 19-06908, 1120 West Marjorie Street. Code Enforcement Officer Marshall. No, excuse me. Is it? Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Daniqua Marshall, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is for LCE 19-06908 at 1120 West Marjorie Street. We recommend to continue this case to the March 23rd, 2020 Code Enforcement Board hearing.
2020 or 2021?
2021.
Is it 2020? I'm sorry. You're right. 2021.
All right, very good. We will go ahead and continue this to the March 23rd, 2021 Code Enforcement Board hearing date as recommended. And next I have LCE 19-07660, 408 Tucker Street.
It's a summary.
It's a summary, which is what it says. Thank you. If there's the affidavit of compliance, we can skip that, Madam Clerk.
Go past that.
Okay. LCE 19-08370, 5635 La Serena Avenue. Officer Barry.
Chris Berry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. Case LCE 19-08370, 5635 La Serena Avenue. Owner is listed as Richard Devane. It's a violation of Ordinance 3947, Chapter 3 for roofs, portions, additions, and sections. Date of violation is November 6, 2019, to be corrected by March 6, 2020. Reinspection on March 10, 2020 showed the violation remains. City recommends compliance by December 6, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
All right. I find there is a violation. The owners have until December 6th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day violation fee imposed. Next I have LCE 19-08578, 3523 Cleveland Heights Boulevard.
City would ask that this case be continued to the January 8th, 2021 meeting.
Very good. We will continue it till January 8th, 2021. Next, I have LCE 19-08803, 1441 Fairbanks Street. Officer Povey.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland, case number LCE 19-08803, 1441 Fairbanks Street. Owners, as stated in the agenda, for violations of overgrowth, trash, junk, and debris. Date of the violation is November 26, 2019, to be corrected by December 11, 2019. Reinspected on March 11th, 2020. Photographs and reinspection on October 30th, 2020. The city recommends it comes into compliance by November 16, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there is still a violation almost a year later. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. Thank you. Next I have LCE 19-08885, Officer Willis, 1122 North Lake Avenue.
Stephen Willis, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. Case number is LCE 19-08885. Address is 1122 North Lake Avenue. Owner is Donna M. Stark. Violations as listed in the agenda. Date of violation was December 4th, 2019. Was to be corrected by February 2nd, 2020. Reinspection was conducted on February 3rd, 2020. Violations still exist. I have photos that were taken on 10/30/2020 that shows the violation is still there. City recommends compliance by January 5th, 2021, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there is still a violation. The owners have until January 5th, 2021 to come into compliance, or a $50 per day fee will be imposed. Thank you. Next I have Officer Perry, LCE 19-08953, 936 East Lime Street. Oh,
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer, City of Lakeland, case number LCE 19-08953, property address 936 East Lime Street. Yeah, this property came into compliance on October 30th, 2020.
I see that now. Thank you.
You
That
don't
was
have
just,
to do that. All you have to do is say it.
and Madam Clerk, for on page 5.
Okay, the next case is on page 7.
Thank you.
Page 5, the one in the middle is a summary.
Okay.
Next is on page 7 at the top.
Page 7, I have Perry, Officer Perry, LCE 19-09346, 838 East Peachtree Street.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer, City of Lakeland, case number LCE 19-09346, property address is 838 East Peachtree Street. The owner is as stated in the agenda for violations of Ordinance 3947, Housing Ordinance, date of violation of January 6, 2020, with it to be corrected date of March 6, 2020. Reinspection on March 9, 2020 shows the property is still in violation. There's been no call for inspection for the interior of the property. The city recommends that the property be brought into compliance by December 6, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there are multiple violations on the property. The owners have until December 6, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 fine per day. Thank you. Next, I have on page 8, Officer Povey. Madam Clerk, is that correct? Looks like. It's LCE, the case number is LCE 20-00095, 219 West Bella Vista Street. Officer Povey.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland. Case number LCE 20-00095, address is 219 West Bella Vista Street. Owners as stated in the agenda, violation for lot clearing, trash, junk, and debris. The date of the violation is January 3rd, 2020, to be corrected by January 18th, 2020. Re-inspected on February 6, 2020. Photos and re-inspection on October 30th, 2020. The city recommends the property come into compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there is a violation still existing. The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Officer Barry, LCE 20-00108, 3611 North Road 98. The owners are the Coins.
Chris Berry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This case LCE 20-00108, 3611 North Road 98. Owners are as listed in the agenda. Violation of Ordinance 5425 for fence condition. Date of violation was January 6, 2020, to be corrected by February 5th, 2020. Reinspection on February 6, 2020 shows the violation remains. City recommends compliance by December 6, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find there has been a violation. The owners have until December 6th to correct the violation, and or else there will be a $50 per day fee imposed. Thank you. Next, I have Officer Povey, LCE 20-00110. Officer Povey.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00110. Address is 1816 West Elliott Street. Owners, as stated in the agenda, the violation of lot clearing, trash or junk trash and debris. Date of the violation is January 6, 2020, to be corrected by January 21st, 2020. Re-inspected on March 9th, 2020, and the violation still exists. Photos and re-inspection on October 30th, 2020. City recommends that the property come into compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine will be imposed.
I do find there is a violation. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Officer Marshall, LCE 20-00118.
Sonequa Marshall, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is for LCE 20-00118 at 620 South Grady Avenue. The owner is listed in the agenda. The violation is for Ordinance 3947, roof and roof portions and sections. The date of violation was January 7th, 2020, to be corrected by March 7th, 2020. A re-inspection was done on March 9th, 2020, and photos taken on November 2nd, 2020 shows that the violation still exists. The city recommends compliance by December 6th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of November 2nd, 2020, the violation still exists. The owners have until December 6th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. Thank you. Next, I have Officer Povey, LCE 20-00159.
You're saying it correctly.
Am I?
Yes, Povey.
Thank you.
I just see you hesitate sometimes. So, Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00159. Address is 2006 Kendrick Lane. Owners West Tampa Holding LLC. Violations are for lot clearing, junk trash, and debris. Date of the violation was January 7th, 2020, to be corrected by January 22nd, 2020. Re-inspected on February 10th, 2020. Photos and re-inspection on October 30th, 2020 show that the property remains in violation. The city recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
Thank you. I do find that as of October 30th, 2020, there was still a violation. The owners have until November 16th to correct the violation, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. Thank you. Let's see. Next, it looks like page 11, LCE 20-00251, Officer Povey. Sorry. You get your cardio in today.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00251, 2250 West Lanier Street. Owners are G Properties LLC. Violations are for lot clearing, overgrowth, junk, trash, and debris. The date of the violation is January 9th, 2020, to be corrected by January 24th, 2020. Re-inspected on February 12th, 2020. Photos and re-inspection on October 30th of 2020 shows that the violations still remain. The city recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
Thank you, Officer Povey. I do find that as of October 30th, 2020, violations still exist. The owners have until November 16th to correct and come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fee imposed. And if you, next I have page 12, Officer Perry, LCE 20-00255.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00255. Property address is 707 Orange Park Ave. Owner is David and Nancy Pipkin. Violations for Ordinance 5425, fence condition, with a date of violation of January 9th, 2020, to be corrected by day of February 8th, 2020, reinspection on February 10th, 2020, and and photos on October 30th, 2020 shows the property is still in violation. The city recommends that the property be brought into compliance by December 6th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of October 30th, 2020, there's still a violation. The owners have until December 6th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fee imposed. Thank you. And next I have also Officer Perry.
December 6th.
LCE 20-00256, Officer Perry.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00256, property address 707 Orange Park Ave. Owner is David and Nancy Pipkin. Violation of Ordinance 3947 for roof structurally sound portions. Date of violation of January 9th, 2020, to be corrected by date of March 9th, 2020. Reinspection of March 10th, 2020, and photos on October 30th, 2020 shows the violation still exists. City recommends that property be brought into compliance by December 6th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
You said $50 per day, correct?
$50 per day fine be imposed, yep.
As of October 30th, I do still find that there is a violation. The owners have until December 6th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fee and fine imposed. Next, I have Officer Povey, case number LCE 20-00267, 1512 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. Officer Povey.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00267. Address is 1512 Martin L. King Jr. Avenue. Owners, as stated in the agenda, the violations are for lot clearing, junk, trash, and debris. Date of the violation is January 9th, 2020, to be corrected by January 24th, 2020, re-inspected on February 12th, 2020. Photos and re-inspection on 10/30/2020 show that the property remains in violation. City recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
Okay, I am showing there still is a violation as of October 30th, 2020. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that now. But yes, $50 per day, fine. Next I have Officer Barry on page 13. For the record, it's LCE 20-00337.
Chris Berry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case LCE 20-00337, 1122 Fountain View North. Owners, as listed in the agenda, it's a violation of Ordinance 3947, Chapter 3 for care of premises. Date of violation was January 13th, 2020, to be corrected by January 28th, 2020. Reinspection on February 18th, 2020 shows the violation remains. City recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there is still a violation that exists. The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for the violation. Next I have Officer Povey, LCE 20-00409.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, Case number LCE 20-00409. Address is 2509 Chestnut Woods Drive. Owners as stated in the agenda. Violations are for lot clearing, junk, trash, and debris. Date of the violation is January 14th, 2020, to be corrected by January 29th, 2020. Re-inspected on February 7th, 2020. Photos and re-inspection on 10/30/2020 show that the property remains in violation. City recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of October 30th, there still appears to be a violation. The owners have until 11/16/2020 to comply, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. Thank you. Next, I have Officer Perry. Case number LCE 20-00612, page 14.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00612, property address 701 North Vermont Ave. Owner is Terry L. Ellis. Violation for Ordinance 5425, prohibited use. Date of violation January 23rd, 2020, to be corrected by date of February 2nd, 2020. Re-inspection on February 3rd, 2020. There's been no actual photos or a re-inspection because it's been no call for an inspection. The city recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I'm sorry, Officer Perry, what, you said there were no additional photos since?
There's no additional photos because there's been no call for inspection.
Gotcha. I do find that there appears to be a violation that still exists. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. Thank you. Next, I have page 16. It looks like Officer Barry. LCE 20-00668 is the case number.
Chris Berry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. City recommends to continue this case to the January 26th, 2021 CEB.
Okay. We will go ahead and continue this case to the January 26th, 2021 Code Enforcement Board hearing. Thank you. Officer Marshall.
Saniqua Marshall, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is for case LCE 20-00670 at 1107 Dorothy Street. The owner is listed in the agenda, and the violation is for Ordinance 4134, derelict vehicle. The date of violation was January 24th, 2020, to be corrected by February 3rd, 2020. And a re-inspection was done on February 4th, 2020, and photos taken on November 2nd, 2020 shows that the violation still exists. We are recommending compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there's still a violation as of November 2nd from photographs presented. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to comply, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for noncompliance. Thank you. Next I have, is Officer Dozier?
Correct.
All right. Go ahead.
Andrew Dozier, Code Enforcement Officer with the City of Lakeland. Case number LCE 20-00681. Address is 614 West 4th Street. The owner is Zone Ease Porter for violations as listed in the agenda. The date of violation is January 24, 2020, to be corrected by February 3rd, 2020. Re-inspection on February 4th, 2020, and another inspection on November 3rd, 2020 with photos on November 3rd, 2020 showed that the property was still in violation. At this time, the city would recommend compliance by 11/16/2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed. $150 per day fine be imposed.
Okay, I do find that according to the photographs on November 3rd, 2020, there still appears to be a violation that exists. The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $150 per day fee imposed. for every day not in compliance. Thank you. Next, I have Officer Browning, LCE 20-00769.
Dennis Browning, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This case LCE 20-00769. The address 2017 Sylvester Road. The owners are Patricia and Mason Rust. The property was cited for violation of Ordinance 3947, Chapter 3, Section 307.4 for care of premises. Date of violation was January 28, 2020, to be corrected by February the 12th, 2020. Reinspection on February the 13th, and photos taken on November the 2nd, 2020 shows the violation remains. City would recommend compliance by November the 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of November 2nd, 2020, the violation still appears to exist. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to correct the violation. There will be a $50 per day fine imposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Officer Berry, I have next, and LCE 20-00774.
Chris Berry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. Case LCE 20-00774 at 503 Cassandra Lane. Owner is Betty Sherber. It's a violation of Ordinance 3947, Chapter 3 for care of premises, overgrowth, open storage, and junk. Date of violation was January 29th, 2020, to be corrected by February 13th, 2020. A reinspection on February 14th, and photographs show the violation remains. City recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
It looks like from the photograph timestamp as of November 3rd, 2020, the violation still exists. So the owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for each day of noncompliance. Next, I have Officer Perry for LCE 20-00817, page 18.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00817. Property address is 748 College Ave. The owner is David Pipkin. Violation of Ordinance 4134, Section 1, derelict vehicle. Date of violation January 29th, 2020. To be corrected by February 8th, 2020. Reinspection on February 10th, 2020. And photographs on October 30th, 2020 shows the property is still in violation. City recommends the property be brought into compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
Just so for my clarification, is it that it's the tag is expired?
Yeah, it's expired tag.
Okay. I do find that there is a violation that still exists. The owners have until November 16th to comply, and there will be a $50 per day fine for every day not in compliance thereafter. Thank you. Next I have is on page 20 at the bottom, Officer Perry for LCE 20-00943.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00943, property address 411 South Elm Road. The owner is John W. Gallagher. Violation of Ordinance 4134, Section 1, derelict vehicle. Date of violation February 4th, 2020. To be corrected by February 14th, 2020. Reinspection on February 17th, 2020, and photos on October 30th, 2020 show the violation still exists. The city recommends property be brought into compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that a violation still exists. Owners have until November 16th to come into compliance. That vehicle appears to have been sitting there since 2016, so I will impose a $75 fine per day for every day non-compliance thereafter. Next, I have page 21, LCE 20-00977, Officer Povey.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-00977. Address is 646 Whitehurst Street. Owners, as stated in the agenda, violation of unsecured or open, unsecured, or unoccupied building. Date of the violation is February 7th, 2020, to be corrected by February 17th, 2020, re-inspected on February 28th, 2020. Photos and re-inspection on October 30th, 2020 show that the property remains in violation. The city recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $150 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of October 30th, 2020, violation still appears to exist. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $150 per day fine for every day thereafter not in compliance. And Officer Povey, next we have LCE 20-00993, which seems to have an affidavit of compliance, so never mind. Next I have Officer Barry on page 22, LCE 20-01023.
Chris Berry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. It's case LCE 20-01023, 4431 North Road 98. Owners as listed in the agenda. It's a violation of Chapter 86 for junk, trash, and debris. Date of violation was February 6, 2020, to be corrected by February 21st, 2020. A re-inspection on February 24th, and photographs show the violation remains. City recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there still exists or appears to exist a non-compliance. The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for every day thereafter. And next, I have, what do we have? Looks like page 25, Officer Willis. And case number LCE 20-01082.
That's actually an affidavit of compliance before hearing. It was closed on October 30th, 2020 for LC 20-01082, 116 Collins Street.
Okay, so they did come into compliance?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. And next I have also page 25, LCE 20-01133, Officer Perry.
Christian Perry, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-01133, property address 820 North Vermont Ave. Owner is stated in the agenda for violation of Ordinance 3947, care of premises, open storage, and junk. Date of violation of February 11, 2020, and to be corrected by date of February 26, 2020. Re-inspection on February 27, 2020, and photos on October 30th, 2020 shows that the property is still in violation. City recommends property be brought into compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that the photographs as of October 30th still show non-compliance, so the owners have until November 16th to comply, or there will be, you said a $50 per day?
Correct.
Thank you. $50 per day fine for every day of non-compliance thereafter. Thank you. Next I have page 26, Officer Marshall, case number LCE 20-01161.
Saniqua Marshall, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is for LCE 20-01161 at 1047 West Marjorie Street. The owners are listed in the agenda, and the violation is for Ordinance 3947, care of premises. The date of violation was February 13th, 2020, to be corrected by February 28th, 2020. And a re-inspection was done on March 2nd, 2020, and photos taken on November 2nd, 2020 shows that the violation still exists. We recommend compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that the photos still show non-compliance as of November 2nd, 2020. The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed thereafter.
Just about everybody needs to speak up and project their voice towards a microphone because we've lost the ability to hear anybody in the room.
That's very sad. I like to be heard. Okay, is that better? Good.
You want NCO or NCO light?
All right. Next, we have Officer Dozier. It's LCE 20-01176.
Andrew Dozer, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-01176. Address is 704 North Lincoln Ave. Owners is listed in the agenda. For violations is listed in the agenda. The date of violation is February 13, 2020, to be corrected by February 23, 2020. A reinspection on November 3, 2020, and photos taken that same inspection shows that the property is still not in compliance. So this time we would recommend compliance by 11/16/2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I'm sorry, what was your recommendation? Was it $50 per day?
That is correct.
Okay. I do find that there still exists or appears to be a violation. The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, and there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for every day thereafter. Thank you. And Officer Dozier, you're up again. Go ahead.
Andrew Dozer, Code Enforcement Officer with the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-01179. Address is 704 North Lincoln Ave. Owners is listed in the agenda. For violations is listed in the agenda. The date of violation is February 13, 2020, to be corrected by February 23, 2020. A reinspection on November 3, 2020, and photos taken at that time show that the property is still not into compliance. This time, we would recommend compliance by November 16, 2020, or a $150 per day fine be imposed.
And do you find that there still appears to be non-compliance? The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to comply, or there will be a $150 per day fine for every day thereafter not in compliance. Thank you. Next, I have Officer Browning on page 27, LCE 20-01216.
Dennis Browning, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is case LCE 20-01216. The address 618 Crystal View Trail. The owner is Muhammad Lisbon. The property was cited for violation of Ordinance 4134, Section 1, derelict vehicle. The date of violation was February the 14th, 2020, to be corrected by February the 24th, 2020. Reinspection on February the 25th, and photos taken on November the 2nd shows the violation remains. City would recommend compliance by November the 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there is non-compliance as of November 2nd.
Yes, ma'am.
The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for every day thereafter not in compliance. And next case, also Officer Browning.
Dennis Browning, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is case LCE 20-01217. The address 1618 Crystal View Trail. The owner is Muhammad Lisbon. Property was cited for violation of Ordinance 3947, Chapter 3, Section 307.4 for care of premises. Date of violation was February the 14th, 2020, to be corrected by February the 29th, 2020. Reinspection on March the 11th and photos taken on November the 2nd, 2020 shows the violation remains. The city would recommend compliance by November the 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that there is a violation. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine for every day thereafter not in compliance. And next, I have Officer Willis on page 28. LCE 20-01241.
Stephen Willis, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. Case number is LCE 20-01241. Address is 1119 North Stella Avenue. Owners is listed as the agenda. Violation is ordinance 4134, derelict vehicle. Date of violation was February 17th, 2020. It was to be corrected by February 27th, 2020. Reinspection was conducted on March 2nd, 2020. Result was the violation still exists. Photos were taken on October 30th, 2020 that reveal the violation does still indeed exist. Therefore, city recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of October 30th, the violation still exists. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed. And also, Officer Willis.
Stephen Willis, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. Case number is LCE 20-01265. Address is 709 West Crescent Drive. Owner is Freddie West. Violation is listed in the agenda. Date of violation was February 17th, 2020, to be corrected by February 17th, 2020. This is a repeat violation referencing case LCE 18-06292 for prohibited storage. Photos were taken on October 30th, 2020, showing the violation still exists. Therefore, city recommends impose $50 per day fine effective February 17th, 2020, and run until compliant.
I do find that there is a violation. I do find that this is a repeat violation. The owners have until, what was the recommendation? Date? The 16th, did you say? Sorry?
Yes, ma'am.
The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be $100 per day fine imposed.
He's imposing.
Oh, I'm imposing. I'm sorry. Forgive me, ma'am. That's, we need the fine effective February 17th, 2020, and run until compliant. This is a repeat violation.
Gotcha. So I do find that there is a violation. The fine will be imposed as of February 17th, 2020 for $50 per day. Very good. Until the owners come into compliance. Next, I have Officer Dozier on page 30 for case number LCE 20-01350.
Andrew Dozer, Code Enforcement Officer with the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-01350. Address is 720 East Lime Street. Owners is listed in the agenda for violations violation of ordinance 3947, chapter 3, section 307.4, care of premises. Date of violation is February 20, 2020, to be corrected by March 6, 2020. Reinspection on November 3rd, 2020, with photographs taken shows that the property is still not in compliance. This time we would recommend compliance by November 16, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of November 3rd, there is still a violation that exists. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to bring the property into compliance, or there will be a $50 fine per day imposed for every day thereafter. Next, I have Officer Willis, LCE 20-01380.
Stephen Willis, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. Case number is LCE 20-01380. Address is 3409 Dale Drive. Owner is Brian Scott Hunter. Violations is listed in the agenda. Date of violation was February 20th, 2020. Was to be corrected by March 6th, 2020. Reinspection was conducted on March 10th, 2020. Result, violation still existed. Photos taken on October 30th, 2020 show the violation still exists. Therefore, city recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of October 30th, the violation still exists. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 fine per day imposed for every day thereafter not in compliance. And also, Officer Willis.
Stephen Willis, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. Case number is LCE 20-01381. Address is 3409 Dale Drive. Owner is Brian Scott Hunter. Violations as listed in the agenda. Date of violation was February 20th, 2020. It was to be corrected by March 1st, 2020. Reinspection conducted on March 13th, 2020 showed the violation still existed. Photos taken on October 30th, 2020 show the violation still exists. City recommends compliance by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that the violation still appears to exist. The owners have until November 16th, 2020 to comply, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for every day thereafter non-compliance. Next I have Officer Marshall on page 32. Case number LCE 20-01476.
Saniqua Marshall, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is for LCE 20-01476 at 1124 West Lime Street. The owners are listed in the agenda. The violation is for Ordinance 3947, care of premises. The date of violation was February 25th, 2020, to be corrected by March 11th, 2020, and a reinspection was done on March 12th, 2020, with photos taken on November 2nd, 2020, showing that the violation still exists. Our recommendation is to comply by November 16th, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of November 2nd, the violation still exists. The owners have until November 16th to come into compliance, or there will be a $50 per day fine for every day thereafter imposed. Next I have also Marshall. Just get comfy. I have page 33, case number LCE 20-01523.
Saniqua Marshall, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is for LCE 20-01523 at 1524 Banks Place. The owner is listed in the agenda. The violation is for Ordinance 3947, care of premises. The date of violation was February 26, 2020, to be corrected by March 12, 2020, and a reinspection was done on March 13, 2020, with photos taken on November 2nd, 2020, showing that the violation still exists. Our recommendation is to comply by November 16, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of November 2nd, there appears to still be a violation. The owners have until November 16th to comply, or there will be a $75 per day fine imposed for every day thereafter. Thank you. Oh, you have one more. Page 34, it looks like you have LCE 20-01541.
Saniqua Marshall, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland. This is for LCE 20-01541 at 457 Beach Avenue. The owners are listed in the agenda. The violation is for Ordinance 4134, derelict vehicles. The date of violation was February 26, 2020, to be corrected by March 7, 2020, and a reinspection was done on March 9, 2020. And photos taken on November 2nd, 2020 shows that the violation still exists. Our recommendation is to comply by November 16, 2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of November 2nd, the violation still exists. The owners have until November 16th to comply, or there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for everyday non-compliance. Thank you. Officer Dozier, you're next.
Andrew Dozier, Code Enforcement Officer with the City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-01564. Address is 511 West 9th Street. The owner is listed in the agenda for violations as listed in the agenda. The date of violation is February 26, 2020, to be corrected by March 7, 2020. A reinspection done on March 9, 2020, with photos taken November 3rd, 2020, show that the property is still not in compliance. At this time, we would recommend compliance by November 16, 2020, or a $150 per day fine be imposed.
I do find that as of November 3rd, there appears to be non-compliance and a violation that still exists. The owners have until November 16th to comply, or there will be a $150 per day fine for every day thereafter non-compliance. Thank you. Next I have, looks like Officer Povey is next. Page 35, LCE 20-02067.
Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland. Case number LCE 20-02067. Address is 830 Crestview Avenue. Owners as stated in the agenda. Violations of Ordinance 4134, derelict vehicle. Date of the violation is March 13th, 2020, to be corrected by March 13th, 2020.
It's a repeat.
It is. It just doesn't say it on mine. Reinspection was, and photos are on October 30th, 2020. Show that the violations remain. The city recommends a $50 per day fine be imposed on March 13th, 2020, and run until brought into compliance.
You got to read it. Do you have the repeat numbers? Because you have to read into record the repeat numbers. If you don't have those, I can get them for you. I have them for you.
I don't have them right now. This is a repeat violation from cases LCE 18-08076, LCE 15-03284, and case LCE 16-07179.
I do find that this is a multiple repeated violation. It would appear from 2015, 2016, 2018, and now in 2020. Am I correct?
Yes.
The violation still existed as of October 30th, 2020. So we're going on 5 years now. The owners will be I will be imposing a fine of $75 per day for every day beginning March 13th, 2020 for the violation, the repeated violation, until the owners come into compliance. And Mr. Povey, I also have you on LCE 20-03855, is that correct?
Correct.
Go ahead.
Tammy, this is also a repeat violation. I do not have.
On 1688?
Yes.
Compass, it's not a repeat. Oh, yeah, it is a repeat. Just go ahead and I'll get it.
Gotcha. Daniel Povey, Code Enforcement Officer for City of Lakeland, case number LCE 20-03855. Address is 1688 Compson Place. Owners as listed in the agenda. Violation is for Chapter 86 of the Lakeland City Code Ordinance, junk, trash, and debris overgrowth and garbage disposal on a lot. Date of the violation is 08/14/2020 to be corrected by 08/14/2020, re-inspected on 08/19/2020, and photos and re-inspection on 10/30/2020. This is a repeat violation from previous cases, LCE 18-0540 and LCE 17-07376. City recommends compliance by 08/14/2020, or a $50 per day fine be imposed. Or a $50, the city recommends a $50 per day fine be imposed starting on 08/14/2020 and run until brought into compliance.
So imposed, there will be a $50 per day fine imposed for every day from August 08/14?
Correct.
$50 per day fine imposed beginning on August 14th, 2020 until the owners come into compliance. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next I have, it looks like Officer Browning. Page 36, LCE 2004408.
Dennis Browning, Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Lakeland, in this case LCE 20-04408. The address 1321 Rolling Woods Lane. The owner is David Hill. Property was cited for violation of Ordinance 5425 in regards to commercial vehicle. The date of violation was September the 11th, 2020. This was a repeat violation referencing case LCE 18-08654. However, on subsequent inspections, the vehicle was not on the property, so we're going to ask that this case be dismissed with no fine.
Very good. We will dismiss the case then. Thank you. And
We're done.
we're done? Is everything?
May I just call for adjournment?
You're good. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone being here, and I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Have a good Friday.
You too.